You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Of course, never an odd time to welcome on some new cohorts here onto our election night special as the clock ticks towards 9 p.m. Central. We are seeing some new states come off the board in terms of closing their polls. We've got Iowa with a whopping 6 electoral votes. That's been one people have been watching a little bit as well, a little bit perhaps surprising. I expect it maybe a little bit of a flip-flop from 2016. Montana as well with a whopping 3 electoral votes. Nevada with 6 and Utah also with 6. Those are all coming off the board as we speak in terms of closing. By the way, the Rock Lobster did send this link over here to the markets going on for the presidential election futures over there at FTX.com, and those are kind of interesting. If you want to just look at straight raw election wagering / trading, obviously that's being baked into the indices as well, but that looks like a nice upswing there. They were trading at about a 0.4. Remember, this is a binary effectively, listeners, so that price level between 0 and 1 is going to effectively be your probability of it expiring at 1, and it has ticked up now to about an 0.80 from a 40, so that's pretty much doubled. So these wagering markets here on the election are certainly pricing in a strong swoon. There's a bid for size here for 80 out here right now. So that's perhaps a little bit surprising as we now welcome on our latest additions to the election night spectacular. First, let's go out to the man. I know he's been lurking in the chat. I've been kind of scared to bring him on because I know once he comes on, all hell is going to break loose in the markets. We're going to be selling off 500 handles, and dogs and cats will be living together in mass hysteria. But I will welcome him on nonetheless. He is the once and future Dr. Vix, Mr. Russell Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes, welcome to the election night special, sir.
I don't know if you saw. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Checking in.
I hear you. I hear you. Yes.
You brought up that FTX chart. Biden has gone from 70 cents 2 hours ago to 20. He just ticked below 20 cents. I'm not sure what the math is here, but Trump's going to win this thing.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to win.
I cannot freaking believe
this. What state just flipped?
Florida's gone.
It looks like Virginia. I think Virginia.
Carolina.
You know what? I never mind.
Hey guys, it's me, the Greasy Meatball.
Let me also welcome on our other cohort here, Mr. Greasy Meatball, one of the aforementioned Northerners who has now swung to Texas, helping make that state perhaps in play this time. Mr. Meatball, welcome to the program to you as well.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody. You know, this is playing out very similar to 2016 in, I would say, shocking fashion if you were a traditional pollster or you were engaged in the political betting markets. I got to say, I'm pretty blown away at how off the polling is. I mean, right now I'm just looking at Florida, for instance, going into the election. Donald Trump was losing by close to 1 point, and with 91% reporting, he's winning by 3.5 points. That is just way off. Ohio is coming in line. I think the ones that we really need to watch, the ones that say, hey, we don't know yet, are Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. That's really, and North Carolina for that matter. North Carolina, which has now drawn to a virtual tie. That's really what's going to, I think, determine the election. But what I will say is that to Russell's point is we've seen futures swing harder. We're currently now looking at the S&P futures up 34, and not because not because of a political outcome, but because of an outcome. I think futures are happy that there is. It appears, obviously Democrats' chagrin, lots of people's chagrin, with the way the betting markets are moving, that there is a strong possibility that we have an outcome tonight, and an outcome is near term, undeniably bullish. Stop me if anybody thinks I'm telling tales outside of school. If we're not going to have a contested election, I think that you're going to see volatility absolutely implode, and you'll see futures make at least a move higher through the open tomorrow.
So, Mr. Meatball, you kind of just touched on it, but I've been asking everybody here tonight, do you think we'll have an outcome tonight? It sounds like you're firmly in the affirmative category, sir.
But futures are. Right now, as we look with, as I said, with Florida's basically a done deal. Georgia appears to be a done deal. North Carolina is not, but appears to be moving toward Trump. Texas is a done deal. Pennsylvania, Ohio is probably a done deal. Pennsylvania and Michigan are not by any resort, nor is Wisconsin. And so those three are really where the rubber hits the road. So, if those start to soften up back the other way, we could see futures sell off pretty fast. So if you're wondering what futures are going to do, I would say just track polling and reporting in Pennsylvania. And that's going to give you a very good insight into how futures are going to move over the next few hours.
Mr. Rhodes, we'll start there before I get for your thoughts on an outcome, even though it sounds like you have a thought too. Obviously, you've been doing a lot of analysis of all things volatility. I know you've been tuning into a lot of our specials. You've heard what some of our other cohorts have shared with us throughout the evening. But let's start. What has been lighting up your tape coming into this volatility event of events, sir? Mr. Rhodes, are you there, sir? Did we lose you? I think he muted himself.
Mark, what I'll tell you is that over the last 2 days, and Russell would have said this, is that all we've seen is VIX put buying in the December contract. And It's been Russell, you're here now. Okay. I'll let you take this over.
I was just this is Eric. I'm just rallying around the sentiment all behind what we all know Russell would say, and Mark, I think you touched on it. Regardless of the outcome, the market just wants clarity. They just want conviction. And direction aside, volatility will subside. The positioning is all in that camp. And if that conviction is 24 hours from now, I think the market will tolerate that. I don't think the market will tolerate multiple days.
Well,
if that's kind of where we're saying.
Dan, has any of this changed your mind at all, sir? Here, as we work to get everyone back here, Texas, a long way to go on the technology front to get the Meatball and everybody back. Has any of this changed your mind, Dan? You think we're going to see an outcome maybe tonight?
No, yeah, I mean, nothing in 2020 will surprise me at all, but I'm still holding strong. I think we're not going to see an outcome by midnight Central Time.
I would not be surprised if we don't see an outcome, but positioning is that we may see we'll see an outcome by the open tomorrow would be my bet. And that I think is why futures are rallying and why volatility positioning was so faded. Mark, I was saying that there is 600,000 more open interest in puts than there are in calls right now in the VIX contract, which is, again, as you and I were talking about on volatility views, borderline unfathomable. So I'm kind of shocked at what we're seeing tonight, and then also the way the volatility index was, a pretty decent predictor of us maybe having an outcome.
Well, Mr. Uncle Mike, you were wagering earlier on. Has any of these recent movements in either the broad markets, we're seeing, we're north of that 3,400 level now that Dan was talking about in terms of resistance out there in the S&P, about 3,415. NASDAQ futures also feeling the love. These, of course, wagering futures north of 81 now in favor of Trump. Mr. Uncle Mike, has any of this perhaps changed your outlook, sir?
No, I still think that we are going to have a victor tonight. I think it's going to be a big surprise. I'm not going to say who, but I still think we are going to have the same victor I thought we were going to have earlier. But just the main thing that we're focusing on is that, like Mark says, even if I'm wrong and we don't have a victor till tomorrow morning, it's still possible that we might get some type of surprise, another type of surprise, because it is 2020. And I wouldn't be surprised if, just like Texas was a toss-up state until it looks like Trump has Texas now, but I wouldn't be surprised if another blue state went red and vice versa. This has been, it is 2020. And I think that we are in for more surprises, and it wouldn't surprise me if futures dropped again. And I still wouldn't even be surprised if we ended limit down, even if we have the victor that we have tonight. That's how unpredictable I think this is.
Well, I'm going to say up 60 handles. That's going to be tough. The futures have just taken off while we've been talking. S&P futures are now trading 34.21. So my 3,400, 34 quarter, 34.50 butterfly in danger. But if we just open here tomorrow, I'm going to be a happy camper. I'll tell you that much.
We need to sit still right now.
Everybody just stop. This is perfect. We have an outcome.
Stop trading.
Why would you need to buy anymore? That's what I would say right now.
And don't sell either.
Don't sell. Sit here. And I think that my big question for you guys is, let's say we get an outcome. All right. We still have COVID on and issues there. What does an actual outcome do to, and I want to take a poll from everybody here. What does a determined outcome tomorrow morning before we open due to the VIX by the close of business tomorrow?
Yeah, I think by the VIX tomorrow, I say if we have an actual outcome by the open tomorrow, I think it also has to do with the House and Senate, because it looks like right now the Democrats are going to maintain the House. But if we have the Republicans maintain the Senate and Trump wins, I think that the VIX will go down to in the 20s. I think that if we have Biden winning and Biden taking the Senate, I think that we could have actually a similar VIX. And here's why. Not trying to be political on either side, but typically Wall Street does like gridlock a lot of times. And right now the House is already a done deal. Otherwise, or for what it looks like, the House is a done deal at this point. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be mentioning this. But I think that those two outcomes right there would determine where the VIX is. I think we need to not only focus on the presidential race, but also what ends up happening in the Senate.
Yeah, we haven't even really had a chance to discuss the other races as we've been talking so much about just the big dog there, of course, the presidential race. I feel bad for Mr. Rhodes. He was listening patiently all evening, waiting for his moment to express his thoughts on all. I saw him chiming into the chat. He was excited. He was raring to go. And then it seems like his technology has abandoned him. Let me try this magical, mystical technology known as phone. Mr. Rhodes, are you there, sir?
Record your message.
The answer would be no. Yeah, that would be his voicemail. So I guess no, Mr. Rhodes. I'm not sure. He got too excited. He pretty much cost himself out there. We'll get him back on. Hopefully his connection works out there. We got Matt, the Oracle of New Hampshire out there chiming in with VIX. Mr. Meatball, are you watching VIX out here? Anything catching your eye out there, sir?
Well, that's what I'm wondering is where do we think VIX is going to – and Mark, I want your opinion on this. Where do you think VIX closes tomorrow if we have an outcome today? Regardless of who wins. Right now it's looking like it's going to be President Trump. But if we have President Biden, blah, 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 blah. If we have certainty, where does VIX close tomorrow? If you had to guess, and I'll weigh in as well.
I have to check my numbers, but I do believe where Matt is, and Matt is guessing at 27.5, is suspiciously close. I will put suspiciously in quotes, suspiciously close to my crystal ball prognostication. So perhaps the aforementioned Oracle of New Hampshire doing a little bit of cribbing of my prognostication. But that is where I leaned last week. Obviously, I was pricing in some sort of outcome. So I think somewhere in that range of the high 20s makes a heck of a lot of sense. I think there still will be obviously unknowns. Certain Senate races and others might be still too close to call and things like that. So there'll be enough flies in the ointment to keep us. We're not going to hit a teens, I don't think. But I think a high 20s around that level makes a lot of sense. I don't know, Luke or Eric, do you guys have any bets on this, or Dan?
I can take a crack at this. This is Eric. So, I mean, market wants certainty. And again, to Mark's point, the certainty will provide a vacuum in just the elevated VIX level right now, right? If there is clarity, there's a premium on that on the entire VIX curve in just gaining some clarity. I think from there, realized vol hasn't been that high. And if realized vol dissipates for a couple days as posturing, takes the price discovery from the election in the House and the Senate, and you take 3-4 days in there, like VIX tomorrow is one thing, Mark. Putting a number on that, I think, call it, I'll make it wide market, 26, 29. You could see in the low 20s here in a week or two from now as the dust settles, just with clarity. So, I don't, absent some flare up in the macro climate around COVID, everybody has been so just anxious to see this election. And once it comes and goes, the visibility is really what the market needs.
Mr. P, same question for you, sir. Do you have any thoughts on where we'll be in the Meatball's grand hypothesis of, actually it isn't that grand, it's looking maybe clearer than it was earlier, that we have an actual outcome tonight, sir? Where are we opening tomorrow?
You know what? I'm going to go with the team. I mean, I think if there is an outcome by morning, I think the VIX is definitely opening below 30 for sure. And just to kind of call attention, big picture here too, like this election is a little bit of a microcosm for option traders, just like throughout the history of trading. It's kind of a perfect example for the whole raison d'etre for options to begin with. Like what the VIX is it's a measure of uncertainty, and it's such an amazing tool that we have, this barometer to take a look at the level of uncertainty and to actually trade it. I mean, notwithstanding betting sites, but this is this is something that really does affect valuations, reality, like actual investing. And, it's just to call attention to how important the options market is to not just identifying risk, but giving people the tool to hedge it and speculate on it.
Well said, sir. I was looking at some of the listeners chiming in here. Stephen Womack saying he's nervous as hell right now, given what's going on out there in the market. I'm sure a lot of people are with you there, Stephen. I guess it depends kind of which side you fall on. But I guess at the end of the day, certainty is good, of course, if that certainty leads to a repeat of what we saw earlier in the year in terms of civil unrest and everything else on there, then it's perhaps not so good. Our former contributor there still listening and chiming in on our show chat here, the Rock Lobster, saying that we're limit up out there, or at least we were, in the S&P. The S&P at 3420, up nearly 60 handles out there right now. So, yeah, quite the lift. The market is obviously pricing it in. I'm looking at some of the outlets now. They're saying Biden's leading in Arizona, but still a little bit too soon to call out there. Certainly the market pricing in, though, like Trump taking some of the big prizes off the table, like perhaps indeed Texas. Even though Texas, closer fight than I think anyone would have thought a little bit earlier out there. Mr. Meatball, you said you're looking at some of the OI on VIXer.
Yeah, so what I want you to, while I'm talking, go through and pull up what are the biggest open interest strikes. But I want to talk about what happened in trading day, and let's talk about where all the volume was in the VIX. Today, 53,000 of the December 23 puts were traded, almost 53,000 of December 21 puts, 33,000 of December 20s, 22,000 of the December 27s, and in November, because and that was in December, people betting that, hey, we'll have an outcome by December and things will calm down. In November, the most active strike was the 35s, which saw about 32,000, and then we saw 23,000 of the 45s, and then we saw on the downside, the 32.5s traded 18,000, the 30s traded 17,000, and interestingly, 14,000 of the 22s traded. Just a unbelievable amount of put volume on the VIX index continued to trade, Mark. And this is what I meant by, like, we have 600,000 more puts that are open than calls. We have a market where today puts almost out-traded calls by close to 2-1. And it was all traders betting on on mean reversion and volatility backing off in the VIX. So, I'm looking at this. I'm not looking at the betting market. I'd love to hear what it is, Mark, in a second. But, I'm looking towards some sort of certainty.
Kind of lost you a little bit towards the end there, Miss Meatball. But I'm looking at what you're talking about, and you're right. It was pretty much a put palooza out there in VIX land. Let's do a little mini vol views here. And while we're at it, let's talk about what the hot, sizable positions are out there in VIX options right now. I'll do a top 10. And spoiler alert, it's going to sound very similar to what we talked about on Friday's show here, listeners, because it's, shall we say, a lot of puts on the table. It cost you 130,000 contracts to break into the top 10 in VIX options right now to get you all the way to the Nova 24 puts. Number 9, 132,000 of the Feb 17 puts. I believe that is the first and only Feb on the list. Yes. Number 8, 134,000 of the Dees 22 puts. Number 7, 152,000 of our first and only call on the top 10 here, listeners. And it's a doozy. It's the Nova 65s. So packing in a little bit of juice there for the only call in the top 10. Remember, VIX, I think to call it call heavy usually is not doing it justice. So one call in the top 10 right now, that shows you where the paper is headed. Number 6, 155,000 of the Nove 21 puts. Number 5, $1.57 of the Nove 25 puts. Number 4, 159,000 of the Dees 25 puts. Numero trace here, 163,000 of the March 17 puts. Number 2, the aforementioned Dees 23 puts with 214,000 on the tape. And number 1 with a little bit larger bullet, not quite as anemic as it has been, 217,000 of the Dees 20 puts. That's good for a total of almost 7.5 million contracts open out there in across the broad spectrum of VIX options. 3.4 million on the calls and about 4 million, listeners, 4.1 or so on the puts. So puts winning the dance out there yet again. Mr. Meatball, does that surprise you? I'm guessing, looking at the numbers you just broke down from today's trading action, I'm going to say the answer is no.
Not based on our discussion on Friday and our discussion and what I saw trading today and yesterday. The trade I put out to our Volatility Edge group today was piggybacking somebody that bought the December 20 puts for 23 cents. Some of these downside puts, because of the way put skew operates in the VIX, were just, in my opinion, excessively cheap. And so I went in and personally, within our fund and within some of the other areas in which I trade, bought the 19 puts and the 21 puts. The 19 puts you could get for, 14 cents, 15 cents. There's a real possibility that we could see an absolute volatility collapse over the next couple of days. I put out the question where everybody thought. I think, the VIX closed 34.79 today. I think we could see a close to 10-point drop tomorrow. I think that's within the realms of possibility. We could see a 10-point drop in the VIX, and the VVIX, which closed 136, we could see a close near 100, all in a single day, because we don't have a contested election, which was, I think, the market's worst fear.
Mr. Dan, do you concur with that, sir, or does that fall outside your realm of prognostication there? Are you there, sir? Are you having the same issues that afflicted Mr. Rhodes? Are you there?
Yeah. If the same issue was I accidentally muted my mic like an idiot, same issue.
We've had a little bit of that so far this evening, yes. But like I said earlier with Sean, you're a genius on mute, sir. That's when your greatest pearls of wisdom come out.
Right. You didn't hear those great things I just said?
I was stunned by your wisdom.
No, yeah. I mean, I think what Mark said is right on. I mean, I think if we do see a non-contested that was the big fear, I mean, I believe that is why the VIX was up where it is right now, where it closed earlier today. I think if we see a decisive victor by morning, we see a non-contested election, holy cow, I mean, that's going to smush the VIX, and it's going to be great for the market. And then things play out in the future, because this is not the only thing that's going on. We've got COVID and the economy, and those are kind of one and the same in a lot of ways. But I agree with you, Mark.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.